and welcome, it's Deborah from Attic Lane, and today I want to share with you a slightly different Mothering Sunday card. This is a card in a box, but it's actually a shabby chic card, and it's all been made from very basic materials, and I'm not going to show you how I made it, but I will show you some of the elements that go into the finished product. So this is actually a box. So this box has been made to fit the card. I made it anticipating if a card needed to be posted. I've made a template of the box, and I think I'll be using this again because it's a perfect size, it's quite sturdy. This has obviously got some embellishment on the front, but if you wanted to send it through the post, you could just put a mailing envelope on the front with the name and address, and I think that would be sturdy enough to support your card as it went through the post. And the way that I did my template for the box envelope is I took the base measurement from the bottom or from the top, and I added 2 centimeters width for this section here, and then another section for the reverse, and then a section here, so that there are the top and the bottom and then sides, and that makes up the final box. So I'm going to keep the template that I've made myself because I think I will make this again, not a Mother's Day card obviously, but I could see me doing this for Christmas cards perhaps, or for special occasion birthday cards, perhaps for wedding cards as well. It would be very, very nice. So that was my template that I've made and I've kept for myself. And the outside of the box, because I don't have to post this, I can give this directly to the recipient. I've put some embellishments on the front of the box. I've put a ribbon which I've just pinched in a little bit with some glue, and I've done a nice little frame for the sentiment. The sentiment, the way that I did that was I printed off some different fonts and different sizes, and then I took a cutout frame and I just made sure that it would fit inside the frame, and then I covered it over with a little bit of ink and I just cut it down. I ran a pencil line around the outside of the frame and I cut it out. And that way you have some choices, you can decide exactly what you want to say. So that was just by printing out on my printer. The oval frame is actually from, this is very, very old, you can see how old this is, look, it's coming away from the support frame, but this is a Tim Holtz Alteration tag and book plates die, and this is what I used to cut out this oval frame. I actually cut out 3 frames, and what I did to get some depth and dimension into them was I stuck 3 together. So they were stuck together, and then that means that they're a little bit firmer than just being cardboard. They're almost like a chipboard. I put 2 brads in either side where the little holes are to hold it together. I did also glue it into position first as well. And once I'd done that, I coloured the outside of the frame with some sepia ink. I just very, very gently went over this with sepia ink, and then a very soft covering of 2 of my favourite gilding waxes. These are both from Pebeo, and I used Empire Gold and I used Renaissance Gold. This is a lovely red gold, whereas this is a cleaner, more silvery gold. And I went around the outside of the frame with those gilding waxes to give it this appearance of being like a picture frame. So that was the box. Inside the box is the Mother's Day card. Now let me just finish showing you the ribbon. To hold that ribbon into position, I actually used a line of hot melt glue, and I secured the ribbon in place, and then because hot melt glue is hot, clues in the name, I held it in place with 2 of these little grippy things, I can't think what they're called, and that held it in place while the glue set, and then I did the other side, and that way it's neatly tucked away into my box and it gives it a nice neat finish. The box, incidentally, I also embellished with some lettering, a lettering stamp that I have, and then I went around the edges again with some sepia, just with a blending tool, and I just went around the corners and the edges to give this a little bit more interest. And I also added a little bit of the gilding wax. You can see the silvery gold gilding wax just to the edges and in a couple of little patches on the back to give it a little bit of a soft, subtle shimmer. The lettering stamp that I used is this one from Impression Obsession. I use this one quite a lot. It's extremely useful. It doesn't have a name. It's got a code L9724, but I will provide a link to this below the video. And I'll also provide a link to the sepia that was used and to the two, and to the two gilding waxes. So that was the box, that was how it was made. I'm going to put that to one side because I want to show you the card. Now, I really like shabby chic stuff. I think it's great, and I think it's very appropriate for a Mother's Day card as well. So this is actually a little book. So it's like a little journal book. There's a little pocket on the inside, and I've handwritten Happy Mother's Day. These pages have been made from teabag stained paper. This paper is a little bit more decorative, and I used my Impression Obsession lettering stamp in grey to add some of this here. I used another tiny little lettering stamp that I have with reddy pinky ink to just dot some colour over this. I used my Impression Obsession stamp to add this texture here, this lovely bit of text here, and I used Potting Shed. I'm just going to grab that for you. I used this Ranger's Archival ink Potting Shed, which is a brown that I think is terrific. I use it quite a lot, and I used that to add some extra interest on the inside of the card as well, and on these little bits of the tea stained paper. The pocket is made from another piece of tea stained paper, and I've done a zigzag stitch around the outside so that it could grab my little card. There's some lace. I've sewn some lace with zigzag stitching across the top, and on this side of the page is a little bit of lace and some just very plain fabric. And then I added some hole protectors at the top of each of the holes as well, just to make it look a little bit more authentic. So I don't know what you'd call this. It's a sort of it's a tag book shabby journal card. That's easy. You remember that. And that's what it looks like. So there is the outside card, which is craft card, and then inside is this sort of pinky reddy printed up, stamped up paper, and then there is tea stained paper. The way that I've joined these is that I put two holes, top and bottom, and put some nice twine through those holes and then tied it with a bow in the middle. What I like about this is if you want to add a whole load of detail, maybe you would like to put some photographs in here that are appropriate to whatever the card is about, then you can add extra little pockets. You can stitch photos in here, special little memories, and everything can be contained within a lovely little memory journal card book. I keep calling it a different name every time I try and describe it. And it's something a little bit different. It gives you an opportunity to really think about what you want to say, what you want to write, and I think it's a pretty cool way of putting a card together. The way that I actually got the tag is, I mean, there's many ways that you could do this. You could just cut out a tag shape. So this is what I started with. I actually cut the bottom of this tag off here. I cut 1 centimetre off this because I wanted it to fit inside my box, and my box was limited to the width of this paper. This is a standard paper size, A4 paper size in the UK, and I wanted my box to be able to fit into an envelope that would fit on an A4 sheet. So I snuck a little bit off the bottom of this tag, not very much as you can see, but this is what I started with. And the way that I cut this was by using my Tim Holtz tag and book plates die. I took a piece of craft card and I folded it in half, and then when I came to die cut this, instead of having the die cut out the whole piece, I put the card edge, the folded edge, ever so slightly inside the cutting line, so that meant that the tag was cut on 3 sides and it wasn't cut on this side, because, I don't know if you can see that clearly, because this didn't go over the cut line. And that way, when I removed my die cut, I still had my fold intact, and it created me a nice little tag. But of course, if you don't need that particular die to be able to do this, you can simply cut out a tag shape. So fold a piece of card down the centre, and then draw a line, cut it out, punch a little hole in the top, and you've got a tag. So that was how this started life. And then all of the embellishments are a build-up of papers. So these are ripped papers. I had a whole selection of different papers. So there's a different paper there, that's a different paper, that's a different paper. They all complement each other in colour. And then there were lots of cutouts that I used. So these are the 2 punches I use the most for these sorts of cards because they're so versatile. I really like them. This is a Tim Holtz Sizzix punch, and this is a Martha Stewart punch, and again I'll provide links to both of these below the video. And these were then added. This is the branches punch, the Martha Stewart punch, and you tuck them in behind your paper. Now when I did this, I layered one sheet of paper on the bottom. I sewed some lace. You can't quite see it, but there's a zigzag stitch to sew this lace onto this card at the bottom, and then I stuck the paper onto the craft card. And for these next layers, they're actually mounted using craft foam. I'll grab the craft foam. This is the craft foam that I use. It's not very deep, but it's deep enough to add enough depth to slip these little pop-out branches in the back of them, so that they look as if they're just springing out of the back of the layers. And I think the layers are what make this interesting. You can keep building layers as long as you want to. It's difficult to know when to stop. You can add all sorts of layers to this. I'm going to use this black card to try and show you that this is a cream net on the extreme edge. So that's some cream net that's just been layered in behind the pages. If you have any flowers or any leaves or any cutout leaves or flowers, you can just add these to your card as well. I tend to add elements like that at the base of the card, so that the weight is all held at the base of the card, and then it gets lighter as you move up the card. And I also have a tiny little corner here, which is a little brass corner, and I just think it's a lovely detail. So you can keep adding whatever you want to these. Any pieces of ephemera you may have, you can add them. This is actually this picture, which is a nice little picture I thought was appropriate for the card. It's a Sunlight soap advert from many years ago, and I found it in an old scrapbook that I had, and so I cut it out and I used it as the central image on this card because it has a mother and a child, and it's just nice for a Mother's Day card. Once I'd added all of my elements on, and most of these were added with my Cool Melt hot glue gun, if that makes sense. It's the Cool hot melt glue. I still managed to burn myself, so there's love and blood in this probably. But I added all of these elements using the hot melt, Cool Melt glue gun, and the way to make these just stand out a little bit more and look a little bit freer and a little bit more natural is not to stick them down flat, but to make sure they have some dimension. So when you're adding these little pieces, just put a blob of hot melt glue on the end and then just slide it in under the element, under a flower or a leaf or a piece of paper, and build it up that way. Once I'd finished adding all of those bits and pieces, I took some white paint and I thinned it down a little bit with some water, and I splashed some white all over the front of the image, the design, and I added some just little fronds of twine and some embroidery thread in the top hole. I only added it into the first layer here, because I wanted this to be able to be opened and all of those pages can be turned and potentially used as well if I want to add any more to this. So in the UK, Mothering Sunday is on March the 11th, so it's coming up next weekend. In the US, I think it happens a bit later, early summer sometime. And so there's not much time in the UK to get your Mothering Sunday cards made, but there's a little bit more time in the US if this is the sort of thing that you think you might like to do. So that's what my Mothering Sunday card looks like. I was going to show you how I made it. I was going to let you join me as I made it. It's just as well I didn't, because it's taken me a week and I don't know how long the video would have been. But I wanted to show you the finished article to maybe give you some ideas about what you might like to do yourself. So I hope that's given you some ideas and some inspiration, and I will see you again next time.